The gospel text of today is taken from Mark chapter 9, verses 14 to 29. It is a scene immediately after the transfiguration, in which Jesus is transfigured on the mountain, in which he discusses with Elijah and Moses who he is and what his mission will be. And after the scene of the transfiguration, Jesus comes down from the mountain with the three closest disciples in Mark, Peter, James, and John. And as soon as he comes down, he sees his disciples and a crowd arguing with one another. And he asks them what the argument is all about. A man steps out from the crowd and says to him that he brought his son, who he believes is possessed by a demon, and he gives the symptoms of that possession to Jesus and says that the disciples were unable to cure the boy. And so the man is at his wit's end. He imagined that because the disciples were disciples of Jesus, they would be able to perform this miracle. They would be able to make his son whole. However, they are unable to do so. Jesus responds by asking those who hear him to have faith. The letter to the Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 1, gives us the classic definition of faith when it says, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. So there are 2 points which this definition makes. First is hope, and second is invisible. The disciples do not have hope, and the disciples are not able to see beyond the physical to the invisible. And that is why Jesus refers to them and the people around them as a faithless generation. Faith in this context means to believe that what I hope for will become visible to me. The disciples are unable to do that. Jesus, however, is the epitome of faith. Jesus is the carrier of the Spirit, and Jesus is the one who communicates this faith, and so Jesus is able to heal the boy immediately. When Jesus turns to the Father, before he can heal, he asks the Father whether the Father believes. And the Father responds like every one of us can respond, I believe, help my unbelief. We all want to believe. We all want to see even before we can believe. We all want the Lord to show us. And yet the Lord says, is it possible for you to see after you believe, or to believe before you see? And the Father is willing to do that. The Father wants the Lord to reach out to him in his unbelief and make his faith complete. And the Father recognizes that the Lord is able to do that. And Jesus recognized the Father's plea and so accedes to his request. In a later text in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 11, verses 22 to 25, Jesus will define once again the meaning of faith when he says that faith is to believe what we are praying for will be ours, and it will be ours. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the least and 10 being the most, where would you mark your faith and why? Will you try from today to increase that level until it reaches the highest possible level for you, knowing that the Lord will help your unbelief. Keep telling the Lord, I believe, Lord, help my unbelief.